On the morning of my 19th birthday, I received a text message from my father. Sold your laptop. Your sister needs a new phone. Be grateful we feed you. Shortly afterward, he added another message. Also, you'll pay her tuition, $6,000 by Friday. I responded with a single word. No. His reply came swiftly. Then get out. You're cut off. So, I left without argument, without fanfare. Quietly. The following morning, my family discovered what I had left behind on the kitchen table. Chaos ensued. My sister panicked, my mother screamed, and my father began dialing every number he could think of except mine. There was no celebration that year. No party, no cake. I hadn't expected much. I never did, not in that house. But I hadn't anticipated what followed either. It began with that text from my father, the first thing I read on my birthday. He informed me matter-of-factly that he had sold my laptop, a tool essential not only for my education but for my work. He claimed it was necessary so my sister could receive a new phone. Then he demanded that I pay her tuition, $6,000, by the end of the week. I believe he assumed that my part-time job and modest scholarship made me the family's financial solution. I stared at the screen for a long time, not with anger, but with disbelief. My laptop, something I had purchased and maintained myself, was gone without my consent. And now they expected even more. My response was simple and final. No. Soon after, I was told I no longer had a place in their home, nor would I receive any further support. So I packed. No arguments, no confrontation. I refused to give them that satisfaction. I took what I could carry and left. I knew they wouldn't notice my absence immediately. They rarely looked up from their own plates at dinner. But I had left something important behind, a folder, neatly placed on the kitchen table. Inside were copies of documents they had never bothered to ask about. Scholarship award letters, details of a job offer, bank statements from a private account they had no knowledge of. All of it under my name. Not a single dollar came from them. On top of the folder sat one document in particular. A court-certified emancipation certificate, signed 6 months prior. They had never even noticed I had filed for legal independence. I left my phone behind after wiping it clean. Changed all my passwords. Then I boarded a train and went to stay with a trusted friend, Jordan. I've not returned since. The next morning, I began receiving updates, not directly, of course. My sister was frantic. My mother hysterical. My father desperate, calling anyone who might know where I had gone. But they could no longer reach me. That line was permanently closed. They believed I had nothing, that they still held power over me. They were mistaken. That first night, I slept on a futon in Jordan's spare room. It was quiet, free of yelling, slamming doors, and the stifling atmosphere I'd grown up in. I barely slept, not because I missed them, but because I didn't. That realization startled me. The following morning, Jordan gently woke me with coffee. News had already begun to spread. Apparently, my sister had a breakdown before school, accusing me of ruining everything. My mother began assigning blame. To my father for pushing too hard, and to my sister for always demanding more. Then she opened the folder. That's when the full truth unraveled. They had always believed I was barely managing, still tethered to their control. What they didn't know was that I had been preparing for this departure for months. The scholarship I earned was substantial, covering most of my tuition. I had been working part-time at a warehouse since I was 16, saving diligently into an account they never knew existed. My father never asked where I went after school. My mother only engaged with me when she needed help with chores or repairs. That morning, Jordan's phone lit up with calls and messages from unfamiliar numbers. They assumed I had sought refuge with him. They were right, but it no longer mattered. They had already lost whatever leverage they thought they held. By noon, word came through a mutual contact. My father had called my college, demanding access to my financial aid records. He claimed to be paying my bills and insisted on knowing how his money was being spent. But there was no money from him. Not a cent. And for the first time, I was truly and entirely free. They told him to take his demands elsewhere. And honestly, I don't place all the blame on my sister. She's only 17, the family favorite, accustomed to having things handed to her without question. She didn't choose to be used as a pawn in their manipulation. Still, she didn't object when they took my belongings or when they insisted I fund her education. Entitlement, after all, is difficult to recognize, let alone unlearn, when it's all you've ever known. When I left, I hadn't intended to make a scene. My plan was to disappear quietly, rebuild my life on my own terms, and let them come to their own conclusions. But watching them scramble now, realizing they no longer know who I am, has been unexpectedly satisfying. They thought I was powerless, stuck, but the quiet one had already walked away. By the end of that week, I was still staying at Jordan's place, but I had started the process of applying for campus housing. I hadn't shared the details of my departure with many people. I didn't want unnecessary drama. Still, when you leave a situation the way I did, people start to ask questions. I wasn't using my phone anymore. I had left it behind, wiped clean, reset, with no SIM card and no number. But I had one thing they didn't know about, an old backup laptop. I'd bought it secondhand and kept it hidden in a storage locker I paid for in cash. It was outdated and slow, but it worked. Through campus Wi-Fi, I checked my school emails and messages. That's when I realized word was spreading. One of my professors had emailed me, asking whether everything was all right at home. Apparently, my father had contacted the department, claiming to be my financial sponsor and expressing concern for my safety. The tone of her message made it clear she didn't believe him. Later, I logged into a private Discord server we'd used for a group project the previous semester. It wasn't public or tied to social media, just a quiet space. That's where I saw it. People from my hometown were talking. Someone had shared that my mother was telling relatives I had run away after stealing money. Same lies, just a new spin. I didn't respond directly. Instead, I uploaded a redacted version of the file I had left on the kitchen table. The one with evidence of my emancipation, my scholarship, and proof that not a single cent came from them. I included screenshots of text messages. No commentary. I let the facts speak for themselves. With Jordan's help, we locked the post. No comments, no sharing. Just a quiet, irrefutable truth dropped into a space where the right people would see it. Apparently, someone did. Later that evening, Jordan received a private message from someone using my cousin Lena's initials. She had once believed every word my family said, especially when it came from my sister, but not this time. Her message was simple. She didn't know what my parents had done to push me that far, but she suspected it was worse than any of us realized. That was the moment it truly sank in. I hadn't just left a house. I had escaped a system built on silence, control, and an image they worked tirelessly to protect. And now that silence was gone. By Monday, I had moved into student housing. A small room with a shared kitchen and a worn mattress, but it was mine. No one barged in without knocking. No locks were mysteriously changed. No threats hovered over me like storm clouds. Jordan had taken it upon himself to filter any attempts my family made to reach me. They emailed the address tied to my old school account, already deactivated. They tried messaging through old contacts, even asked a former teacher to pass along a note. It all reeked of desperation. They had never imagined I would actually cut them off. In their minds, I was still the quiet one, the helper, the compliant child, the one who absorbed the blame, the demands, the sacrifice, all without protest. I was supposed to keep smiling, keep paying, keep enduring. That's what they taught me. Don't talk back. Don't create problems. Above all, don't walk away. But I had, and I wasn't coming back. From what Jordan heard through mutual acquaintances, my father eventually showed up at my sister's school. He was demanding that someone fix this mess. But what they considered a mess was, for me, the first taste of freedom. He told her not to worry, that I would come around, that I'd pay the tuition. But by then, I was already gone, both legally and physically, and their pressure no longer held any weight. When they finally realized the money wasn't coming, everything unraveled. My mother blamed my father for pushing me too far. My father blamed me for embarrassing the family. And my sister? She began reaching out to people who used to be close to me, hoping guilt would do what demands had failed to accomplish. One of them messaged Jordan. Just one line. Tell him she cried all night. He didn't respond. As for the laptop they sold, I filed a police report. I had the serial number, the purchase receipt, and screenshots to prove ownership. They'd pawned it locally, and I could trace the sale. Technically, the case is still open, though I don't expect a resolution. I didn't report the theft expecting to get it back. I filed it because people like them believe they can act without consequence. I wanted documentation, a paper trail. I also contacted the Scholarship Foundation directly. I updated my contact information, explained that I had left home for safety reasons, and confirmed that I had severed all financial ties. They didn't question it. They understood immediately. I wasn't the first case like mine. That same week, I completed the setup of an emergency student support account through the Campus Resource Center. They provided food vouchers, textbook access, and even offered guidance on legal questions. When I showed them the emancipation paperwork and copies of the messages, no one gasped. Just a quiet, knowing nod. They'd seen it all before. People often imagine walking away means shouting, slamming doors, or setting bridges ablaze. But sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it means cutting every connection, phone, expectations, obligations, and finally finding peace. A month passed. No contact. No slip-ups. No turning back. I stayed off social media, kept my focus on school and work, and lived quietly. At first, the silence felt strange. No one yelling from another room, no guilt hovering in the air like fog. Just the steady, unfamiliar rhythm of my own life moving forward. Then one evening, Jordan called. Not out of curiosity, just to keep me informed. My father had shown up at Jordan's workplace. He tried to appear calm, pretending it was a casual visit. Said he wanted to pass along an urgent family matter. Jordan didn't engage. He went straight to his manager and had him removed from the premises. Security cameras caught the whole exchange. Witness statements were recorded. Another report filed. Another reminder. I was no longer theirs to summon. Not long after, I received a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting, frantic and uneven. My mother's. Inside were 5 handwritten pages filled with emotional manipulation. We only did what was best for you. You owe us for raising you. Your sister is suffering, and it's your fault. At the end, a request. Help them pay for a new apartment. Apparently, their landlord had discovered that they were misusing funds intended for my education, and had caught wind of the laptop situation as well. Their lease wasn't renewed. My sister's school placed a hold on her account. No tuition. No registration. I didn't respond. I didn't even keep the letter. I scanned it, stored a digital copy for my records, and dropped the physical pages into the dumpster behind the campus cafe. Gone. Just like the version of me they thought they still controlled. Sometimes I wonder what they're doing now, whether they realize how thoroughly they lost. Not just me, but the story they were so desperate to control. The illusion of authority. The performance of being in charge. I never sought revenge. I didn't sabotage them. I didn't manipulate behind the scenes. I didn't have to. They did it to themselves. They raised someone who paid attention, who learned quietly, who planned carefully, someone who gave them every opportunity to do right, and walked away when they didn't. And now they're left with nothing but the noise they created. And me? I have peace. And a future. If this story resonated with you, consider leaving a like, sharing your thoughts, or subscribing for more honest, unfiltered narratives like this one. Your support makes it possible for voices like mine to be heard. Thank you for listening.